Hi, everybody. I'm here with Daniel Harris, and we're talking recruiter enablement. But I should say, we might be here with 4-month-old Milo Harris as well. We'll see if he wants to come on camera or not. Daniel, first of all, give us a quick introduction to you. Who are you? What's your background?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Really good to be here. Thanks for having me on. Daniel Harris. I've been in talent acquisition for the best part of 18, 19 years now. Currently doing some consulting for Mott McDonald. I was leading the tech products and data talent acquisition for Getir. I was there for a couple of years. Prior to that, I worked in management consulting at Acom, Mott McDonald again. Yeah, I've worked in-house, exec search, agency side. So yeah, looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, so you've seen it from lots of different angles. Um,
Absolutely.
okay, what's recruiter enablement to you?
Um, I personally think it does what it says in the tin, isn't it? It's being able to ensure that your recruiters have the support and the tools to be enabled in their roles. That's probably the very, very basic common sense response.
Yes. What's like a bit more specific than that? What are this? What are we aiming to achieve with recruiter enablement?
Yeah, I think I think there's two ways you can look at this. So, scratching the surface, as I said, like the simplistic view is it's about enabling the recruiters to be able to do their jobs properly. I personally think that there's a much bigger piece around recruiter enablement, which is all around how talent acquisition as a function is perceived within the organization, and that to me is what really enables the recruiters. If you don't align the perception of the talent acquisition function with actually the roles and responsibilities of what you're tasking your recruiters to do, then I think you're going to have a very difficult time. So I think if, for example, if you want to build a team that are doing lots of proactive pipelining and they're feeding the top of funnel with some great sourcing and deep diving and talent insights and what have you, um, but your organization just want a transactional recruitment team that can post jobs and get candidates in and close them again. I think you're misaligned and you're going to find it very difficult to enable your recruiters to do what you want, what your what your vision will be versus what the business wants. So I'd say at the very simplistic end, it's just giving them the tools to do what you want, but much deeper than that, I think it's aligning to what the business, what their perception is, what they want from talent acquisition, and then making sure that you're aligning.
Should talent acquisition um, change what it's doing to suit what the business is saying they want, or should talent acquisition set out the best way to do it and then try and bring the business with them?
Yeah, I think a bit of both, and again, it depends on your leadership, and because sometimes you'll have very you're never going to get a leadership that know everything about talent acquisition. That you have to. There's always going to be an element of education that you need to show them the way, and to some extent. Um, but depending on how engaged they are in talent acquisition and how knowledgeable they are about what great talent can be, what their views are on, some people are out there or some leaders and founders will be out there saying talent is the most important priority for my organization, whereas there are other leaders that just see it as a transactional response to a vacancy coming in. So depending on what their views and philosophies are around, the business, I think it can vary, and that's not a great answer for it, but I do think it.
Yeah, no,
I think
it's
sometimes you need to steer them and guide them. Sometimes you need to just show them the art of the possible.
yeah.
And rather than just nudging in the background, trying to elevate, sometimes you've just got to set your team up to do it, and then go and wow them with what great work you can do.
Okay, getting a bit more tactical now. Tell us about some of the things maybe you've done over the years to better enable recruiters and things that you would recommend or things that you would not recommend.
Yeah, I think it's giving them, it's providing them with the freedom as well. You've got to have freedom within a framework for sure. You can't just let everyone do their own thing and then it's very inconsistent and candidates are not going into the ATS correctly, or there's just, you lose track of what you're doing and it becomes very difficult to measure activity and, and ultimately measure where candidates are coming from, what your source of hires, all this sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
you need to give them freedom, but it obviously needs to be within a framework. I would say just enabling them to be able to be creative in their roles. One example springs to mind. It was a recruiter that was working with me in Getir, and she was awesome, one of the best recruiters I've worked with. and she was also a hobbyist developer in her spare time. GitHub was where we'd find a lot of talent, but GitHub is not very. Oh, it's Milo jumping in and saying hello if you heard him. Yeah, GitHub isn't the most user friendly to search for talent. You've got to be quite techie, or you've got to be quite knowledgeable on the platform to be able to really get in. She in her time at Getir, she was doing a lot of GitHub searching. She ended up building her own platform that overlays GitHub. It scrapes information from GitHub and allows you to search candidates by location, by tech stack. And it was amazing. It really kind of took us to another level in terms of the search. So I think that was just like giving her the freedom to be able to do that and build it, and then supporting her to actually use it and embed it into her workflow. So that's probably a great example where you're just giving them freedom and creativity. But then again, that's not always going to work. I mean, there's also times where recruiters can spend hours and hours or days and days trying to search for new ways to find talent, and none of them work, and they have to go back to tried and tested, search on LinkedIn or tweaking job adverts, etc., to try and bring candidates in, because some of the new methods aren't bringing out results. So yeah, I'd say that's the good and bad side of it.
You've talked about freedom. What about the framework? What is the framework? What does that look like?
I would say just make it, again, it's about enablement. It all kind of goes back to enablement, but again, it's just about making sure that when you've got your tools in place. So the main one would be your ATS. It's making sure that your recruiters know how to use it. It's making sure your hiring managers know how to use it. It's making sure that it's not only know how to use it from a functional perspective, they know what data you're pulling out the back end of it and what data you're presenting to your business stakeholders, your leadership teams, so that they can actually, they realize why it's important to make sure that they're putting the right information and the right details about their candidates, they're the right notes in the system, they're filling in the right fields in the forms that you're asking them to fill in. Because if they don't understand that, it's going to bring Milo into the discussion.
He's, bring him on.
Getting a little bit impatient, sat here next to me watching without getting involved.
He's better looking than you anyway, so he adds to the visual we get here.
Yeah, absolutely. I lost my chain of thought for a second there, but I think I was going along the lines of, if the recruiters don't know, if you're just asking them to fill a form in an ATS, but you're not telling them the reasons why you need that information and why it's so important, and you're going above and beyond the whole kind of, it's just there for GDPR. If you start telling them that obviously GDPR is very important and you need to ensure you're managing your data properly, but at the same time, if you're putting poor data into a system, you're going to get poor results out the other side, and you're not going to be able to reflect the great work that your team are doing. So
another thing about. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Another thing that you've just got me thinking about there, though, is like, if you don't tell them why they should be doing something in a particular way, why that process is set up like that, then they can't really challenge it. And you want them to challenge processes, I think. You want them to be able to, in terms of the freedom aspect of what you've said, you want them to be able to come up with like better ways. So
yeah, absolutely, because actually another example of enablement is removing unnecessary duplication of work or administration, and we all have admin in our roles, no matter what you do, but ultimately you don't want admin for admin's sake. You want to try and strip back what you can. You want to implement AI, and you want to implement different tools that can take some of that heavy lifting away from the recruiter. And if you don't explain why you're doing things and don't encourage them to challenge the processes and come up with new ways and better solutions, ultimately they're the ones that are going to be using the system. So they're the ones that know it best, or should know it best.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Daniel, it's been really great talking to you about this subject. I love the concept of freedom within a framework. That's the kind of headline for what we talked about here, I think. And it's not something in that context, it's not something we've covered on this channel yet. But I've also got to tell you, nobody watching this is looking at you. They're all looking at Milo.
Yeah, he's actually pretty chilled now. I think he's obviously very happy on video. So
yes, absolutely. Maybe a Hollywood star of the future.
And I've got this bright toy next to him, so he keeps on getting distracted by this, I think.
Perfect. Daniel, thanks for joining me today. It's been great to talk to you.
No worries. Thanks so much, Adam. Take care.